Labeling the triangle. Generally speaking, there are two main types of triangles, or two main categories, if you want to put it that way. The right-angled triangle, which is recognizable with its characteristic rectangle at one corner, representing 90 degrees. And the oblique triangle that does not have any vertex or any angle which is 90 degrees. So you can label this one to the left, the right angle triangle, and this one to the right, the oblique triangle. So let's talk about the right angled triangle first. So a right angled triangle without any acute angles, this is how you would label it. The hypotenuse is always opposite the 90 degrees. The hypotenuse is always opposite the 90 degrees. If you want to put it that way, you can say, well, the box for the 90 degrees points to the hypotenuse. And the hypotenuse is always the longest side in a right angle triangle. Now, since there are no acute angles, the two sides that form the 90 degrees, the two sides that make up the square of the 90 degrees are called the legs. Now, if you've got a right angle triangle with acute angles, let's say A and B here. So now you have angle A, you have an angle B, and there you have the 90 degrees. The hypotenuse will always be away from the 90 degrees. The hypotenuse is always opposite to the 90 degrees. Now, let's start with the vertical side here. However, if you twist the right angle triangle, it will not be vertical, but just for reference, let's start with this side. This vertical side, as you can see, is opposite to the angle A. Also, it is adjacent to the angle B. Please denote that hypotenuse can be considered a noun, the hypotenuse. But the words opposite and adjacent cannot really be called nouns. No, they are like prepositions. Where are the position with reference to something? So please always practice using the word opposite and adjacent with respect to an angle. So this side is opposite to angle A. So don't just say opposite, complete the phrase. Opposite to angle A. At the same time, it is adjacent to angle B. Likewise, this horizontal side there is adjacent to angle A, but it is also opposite to angle B. This will be very important when it comes to solving right angle triangles using the sine, cosine, and tangent ratios, commonly known as SOHCAHTOA. So let's move on to the oblique triangle. As you can see, angle A is between sides B and C. Angle B is between sides A and C, and angle C is between sides A and B. So the word between is commonly mentioned when talking about angles and sides of an oblique triangle, but not with the right angle triangle. You cannot mention the word between, but you can for the oblique triangle. Also, side A is opposite to angle A. As you can see, uppercase for the angles, lowercase for the side. Side B, lowercase b, is opposite to angle B, uppercase B. And similarly, side C, there it is opposite to angle C, uppercase C. So you can use the word opposite also for an oblique triangle. So the characteristic words for the oblique triangle are between and opposite, but for the Right angle triangle is opposite, adjacent, and hypotenuse. As you can see, the word adjacent and hypotenuse cannot be mentioned for the oblique triangle. Neither legs. So an oblique triangle does not have any leg because the legs that form the 90 degrees. So since there is no 90 degrees in an oblique triangle, there are no legs to make up a 90 degrees. And since there are no 90 degrees, there is no pointing towards a hypotenuse. So there is no hypotenuse in the oblique triangle. And neither do the adjacent. So please take note of that. And this concludes our labeling of the right angle triangle and the oblique triangle.